the latest mass shooting attributed to a trans or non-binary killer, or as the Canadian authorities call him, the gun person. God forbid they should misgender a mass killer.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to...
Ami, what more do we know about this gunman, Jesse Van Rutselaar, and this horrific crime?
Yeah, you stole one of my notes. I mean, how Orwellian, gun person. That is, God, that is chilling and crazy. Yes, we know this was a trans person. First of all, look, as we now have to say, we talk about gun laws and what their effects are ultimately on shootings. Canada has one of the strictest gun laws, certainly in the world, and yet this is a mass shooting that we've had. Look, if the gunman wasn't a straight white male, it's the job of the authorities to hide their identity. That's the way it works, right? It's a straight white male. We'll identify him all the live long day. But if it's not, so if it's a trans person, we're gonna do whatever we can to obscure what the identity is, right? And look, I had, like I always do, I do show prep, and I did my research with AI, and we always have that fun AI stories. And I asked, well, what percent of school shootings we've had in the last 5 years have been from trans people? And it refused to give me a number. It kept saying it's a very, very low number. I swear it would not. I had to list every single one of the last 5 years mass school shootings and individually go through them. And what's the answer? There's been 5 in the last 5 years, and 2 of the 5, 40%, have been people who are trans or non-binary. Yet
since we last talked about this, I went and checked that out for myself. I asked the not just ChatGPT but Grok, and asked precisely what you were talking about, to list the number of mass shootings in the recent years that have involved a trans shooter or a non-binary shooter, and it just refuses to do it. When you then give it a number of events, it will acknowledge it and repeat those to you, but it will not compile a list, which is extraordinary, because I could ask it to compile any other sort of list and it will normally do it. But there is just this determination not to acknowledge that perhaps there is a problem here. Now let's move along to the House of Representatives today, passing a massive election integrity bill, 218 to 213 votes. We've talked about this before, Ami, about how popular this policy is. Around 85% of Americans back voter ID, but the Democrats continue to oppose it. They voted against the Save America Act, Ami.
Yeah, and this happens over and over and over again. All the Democrats voted against it in the House, save one. Look, there's a reason why they continue to push universal mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting and voting all year long and against voter ID. And by the way, also voting for non-citizens to vote. I know. They all say that's not true. That's a scurrilous lie. It absolutely 100% is true. In New York, in Chicago, in San Francisco, in DC, and other cities, they have voted to have non-citizens vote, okay? I'm sorry, that's the reality. They want to try to get away from it all they want, but it's just not possible. Look, last week we talked about the reason why I made that voter ID video, because somebody voted for my dad. What I didn't tell you, the second part of that story, which ties into this, is that I took a photo of that and I sent that to the California Board of Elections. I go, look, you claim there's no voter fraud. Here is an absolute clear indication of voter fraud. You know how quickly they got back to me? They never got back to me. They don't care. They don't want to know. That's the reality. Look, Rita, in virtually every Western European country, you have to show ID to vote. That's just part of what it is. They don't want to safeguard elections because they call safeguarding elections voter suppression. That's the Democratic Party. Okay, the reality is they want this problematic issue to be in our voting because they feel whatever,